Hey guys, Ann Weaver here. Today I'm going to demonstrate the tubular bind off, which is the same as grafting or Kitchener stitch. So when you're setting up for the tubular bind off, you're going to put your stitches on two needles. So half are going to be on one needle, half are going to be on the other, because you need two edges to graft together, just like you would the toe of a sock. So I've written out my cheat sheet for grafting right here. I have found it helpful for a long time to write this on a piece of paper and have it in front of me as I grafted my stitches. Let me demonstrate what this means. Already done a little bit here. It's a little awkward to get started. When you're doing a tubular bind off, you're going to cut your yarn and you're going to leave a length about 3 times the length of what you need to bind off. In this case, I did not leave that much orange because I'm binding off using a different color, so you can see really see what I'm doing. So we're going to start with P off right here, and that means that on your back needle, you're going to stick your tapestry needle into the stitch as if you're going to purl it. Then take the stitch off your needle. Next is knit on if I move to the left, just like I'm moving here, which means I'm going to stick my tapestry needle through this stitch as if to knit, pull it through, leave the stitch on the needle. All right, so now I go to the front needle, which says knit off. Here's my front needle. I'm going to put my needle into that stitch as if to knit it, pull it through. A little tangly here. Okay, good. Kick the stitch off the needle. Next is purl on, so insert my needle in the next stitch as if to purl it, pull the yarn through, leave it on my needle. Return to the back needle. Purl off, knit on. Return to the front needle, knit off, purl on. Back needle, purl off, knit on, front needle, knit off, purl on. So I've heard people say, oh, you really get into it, it's rhythmic, purl off, knit off, purl on. I don't think that's helpful, because you can just as easily say knit off, purl on, and forget which needle you're doing which on. So I find it helpful to visually write down what I'm going to do and look at it. Eventually, I promise you will get to the point that you'll be able to look at what you're doing and know if you're doing it correctly and troubleshoot that way. So you can see that I have not pulled my stitches really tight as I've worked. The reason for this is if I mess up, I want to be able to see them and take them out easily. I'm using a different colored yarn so I can see what I've done really easily, but if I were using orange, it would be really hard to see and hard to pull out those stitches if I needed to back up. So after I've done maybe an inch of stitching, I'll go back and tighten these guys up. So you can see I've already tightened these. Go back, find my stitches. They're kind of loopy and awkward because I was very loose about it, but I can tighten them up here using my tapestry needle and make this look very neat. I like to do this slowly and carefully, because once you pull it tight, it's going to be a lot more difficult to see what you're doing and to take out any mistakes. So if you take your time on this, you'll be able to catch anything that goes wrong and back it up. If you yank this really tight, you're going to have a really hard time correcting anything you don't like. So you can see here, what I've created is basically a row of stitches. You see those little V's. What I've done with my needle is I have knit a row by manipulating this needle. I've made the yarn do what it does when I knit a row of stitches. So you can see how this is beautifully closed up. You want to get a tension about equal to the tension of your stitches, and it matches the tubular cast on. So, advice for the tubular bind off: write out your cheat sheet, however you want to remember it, put it in front of you. Length of yarn 3 times what you're binding off. Be loose at first, tighten up later.